Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the Last Christian Podcast. We're so blessed to have you join us. It's time again to join Brother J.D. Williams in seeking the hope and glorious appearing of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ, chasing away the worries of the world and replacing them with the blessed hope. Where in a moment, in the twinkle of an eye, at the last trumpet, the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Brother J.D. Williams insists there must be a final person or last Christian to accept Christ before the sound of the trumpet. Will it happen today? Here now, Brother J.D. Williams.
Hello, and thank you for joining me tonight for another edition of the Last Christian Podcast. My name is J.D. Williams, and I am the CEO of Ustream, the parent company of the Last Christian podcast and radio shows, as well as Revelation Radio. Please always remember, just like there's a last play in every game, there is a last person that will accept Jesus Christ before the rapture of the church. Some will be saved later, but the last Christian saved before the Lord calls his church home will, without question, be the last to escape the tribulation yet to come. Now tonight I'm going to explain and attempt to make sense of the ongoing attack by our nation's president and the far left extremists about the MAGA movement, and their evil and deliberate attempts to mislead us, and their propaganda and lies by representing themselves as speaking for the majority. This is especially true in regard to the so-called mainstream media news organizations, which have become nothing more than well-organized, misleading, fraudulent propaganda machines. Their key repetitive phrase being to attack supporters of former President Trump as MAGA terrorists. And tonight, like it or not, I'm going to expose them for who they are and why their claim is so ridiculous. And then tell you who the real domestic terrorists are in the United States. And believe me, they are not going to like it. But facts are facts, and truth is truth. So they're just going to have to deal with it. Now, just in case you missed it, and honestly, it's hard to believe that anyone could, here's what the ongoing assault on MAGA supporters looks and sounds like every day. And even from our current president.
A terrorist mob. A terrorist attack on the U.S. Capitol. Far-right domestic terrorism, a huge problem in this country. Nobody supports terrorist attacks, or I used to think that anyway, but nobody rational supports terrorist attacks. Should there be repercussions for your colleagues who played a role in inciting this terrorist attack? You can't have presidents of the United States inciting terrorist attacks on the Capitol. Incited a terrorist mob. Incited the terrorist attack, and the terrorists that he has emboldened. But after the terrorist attack on the Capitol, that deadly terrorist attack, the deadly riot, the terrorist attack, the deadly terrorist attack, and that's not even including the terrorist attack. New clues that the January 6th Capitol attack may just be the beginning of more right-wing, extremist, MAGA terrorist attacks in America.
If you have a state change the law saying that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children. Is that legit under the way the decision is written? What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
Now, hearing that load of horse manure, it's time to see what the fuss is all about by explaining what the MAGA movement is truly all about. It starts with national security in the form of true border, to prevent the influx of illegal immigration into the United States, protect the nation's sovereignty, and prevent the flow of illegal and life-threatening drugs, human trafficking, specifically child and sex trafficking, protect us from the drug cartels and the dangerous foreign terrorists and gang members from entering our country. This has nothing to do with being against immigration. Legal immigration is great and supported by almost everyone, while illegal immigration is in fact a crime. It always has been, though many don't want to admit that as fact. Make America Great Again supporters also favor energy independence, allowing the United States to acquire the necessary fuels that we need to provide energy to the country, while also lowering the cost of fuel to citizens and even allowing for the exportation of energy to the world, as was the case during the Trump presidency. That accomplishment was halted immediately by the Biden administration. And no one listening tonight can argue the fact fuel costs have not skyrocketed. And forget Biden's Putin excuse. Look it up. Fuel prices were much higher than the day President Trump left office and well before the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. Additionally, fuel prices would have never even increased at all had President Biden not interfered, with his policy simply to bow to the far left New Green Deal idiots. Again, just facts. Look it up. By the way, last year, just here in Texas, utility companies were forced to employ rolling blackouts, or to be more specific, cut off the flow of energy whenever they wished, not even providing a 2-minute warning, so to speak. This sometimes causing people to lose power to their homes, communication, cooking ability, refrigeration, air conditioning, and it lasted for hours, days, sometimes in many cases weeks, just because the temperature went up a few degrees. Now imagine if everyone needed to power their vehicles using electricity. Obviously, if the electric grid can't handle the normal use of power increasing by, say, 5 degrees, how in the world can it handle powering every car and truck in America while also continuing to provide basic needs? The answer, of course, is it can't. And even the nuts trying to force this down our throats, well, they know it too. The MAGA crowd also favors freedom of speech, including the speech from non-MAGA supporters. MAGA supporters, they have the belief that all races are equal. 1 vote per person with verification of citizenship for each citizen. Law and order, or the enforcement of laws on the local, state, and national level. Freedom of religion, not to be confused with freedom from religion. Decisions based on democracy concerning abortion, meaning decisions as implemented by each U.S. state without the involvement of the federal government. MAGA seeks an education system run by each school district within the requirements of each state's law, again with no federal involvement, but instead based on the wishes of parents, not bureaucrats teaching for a test, or with the intention of imposing federal guidelines on students through a one-size-fits-all approach that simply cannot and will never work. MAGA believes in placing the importance of the American citizens in the United States of America first, above the rest of the world, exactly as is done in every other nation of the world. MAGA supporters believe in a strong military to defend the homeland from attack, both foreign and domestic, and of course, protecting the United States Constitution, especially in regard to protecting the 3 branches of the federal government, those being the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, without the violation of the Constitution for political means, but instead only changed by actual constitutional amendments as ratified by a 2/3 majority of the 50 U.S. states, last amended in 1992 with only 27 amendments ever. And in my mind, perhaps the most important, an unwavering, well-defined, and complete support for the state of Israel. As any nation choosing to support Israel, the Bible tells us, will be blessed, while any nation cursing the Jewish state, God will himself curse. Now, if you don't agree with the MAGA agenda, I just briefly touched on it without really going into any detail or even mentioning other important aspects of it, then please tell me how they can in any way be equated as our president defines them, as the greatest terrorist threat in modern American history. Do you want to know what the real terrorist threats are to the United States? First, the government itself. Each and every time they try to use the government to tear away at the rights of individuals by government mandate, they rip the very fabric of the United States Constitution, violate it, and terrorize every American citizen. But here's a true short list of the true terrorist organizations in the United States, the domestic ones. And I'll begin with MS-13, a group that is responsible for murder, documented terrorist activities, sex trafficking, illegal drug transportation, torture, destruction of property, and of course, gang, even mafia-style activities. They have infiltrated the United States for the most part by means of illegal border crossings and operate primarily in the western United States, basing their activities in California, but organized and active in every U.S. state. Next, there's Black Lives Matter, a domestic terror organization founded almost exclusively on the premise of racial superiority. Not a group seeking to unite a nation, but instead a group responsible for intensive destruction of private property, unmatched racial discrimination, intimidation, violence, including acts leading to murder, drug trafficking, sexual exploitation, derision, and even though calling their cause one of social justice, their true intent being to reestablish racial segregation in the disguise of racial equality. Next, the mainstream media itself, to be probably the biggest. While a free press is essential for any democracy to survive, the job of a free press is to question those in power, regardless the party or person in charge, not to endorse one party, person, or political ideology while demonizing another. A true free press does not provide unsubstantiated facts, deliberately mislead, or make up and disseminate false information. Remember this quote: if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such a time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all its powers to repress dissent. For the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus, by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. That quote is from Joseph Goebbels, who was the chief propagandist for the Nazi Party, and then Reich Minister of Propaganda from 1933 to 1945 in Germany, or in today's terminology, the chief of misinformation, deciding what was proper for the people to hear and what speech to ban, delete, suspend, or cancel. My observation on that being to quote Sir Winston Churchill, the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, warning that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Is it just possible we have forgotten that fact from our history and instead allowed the present mainstream media to utilize Goebbels-style propaganda to promote their narrative? I think that's something that we should consider. Don't you? The next terrorist organization is the new American Socialist movement that's been endorsed or at least ignored by President Joe Biden himself. That extremist organization is led by U.S. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, referred to as AOC. She believes in socialism and is the author of the Green New Deal. That embraced by the current administration in Washington as a result by fuel cost increases that have doubled and, in some cases, tripled the cost of fueling American cars and trucks, causing greater financial strain to those least able to afford it, while also leading to the greatest inflation rate in recent memory, a fragile, almost broken supply chain, empty store shelves all across America, and an increase in the cost of virtually every product and service in the United States, including the recent inability of young parents to even find baby formula to feed the most vulnerable among us. Remember, socialism has failed in every country in which it's been introduced and always leads to communism, or absolute government control of every aspect of the lives of its citizens. A few to adopt socialism include China, Cambodia, Cuba, the now extinct East Germany, Ethiopia, North Korea, Poland, now claiming to be a democracy and member of NATO, Romania, Venezuela, and of course the old Soviet Union, now modern-day Russia. The same Russia that the Bible teaches us in Ezekiel chapter 38 that will lead a coalition of nations in an attempt to destroy the state of Israel, planning to attack the Jewish state simultaneously from the north, south, east, and west. But what about January 6th? What's all the fuss about? The mainstream media is infatuated with that one day and one instance. So just how bad was it? A grand total of 4 people died on January 6, and every one of them were supporters of President Donald J. Trump. 2 of them died of heart attacks, while both of them had pre-existing conditions leading to their death. The third, a person suffering from attention deficit disorder, better known as ADD. who died of an accidental drug overdose. And the last person died of complications resulting from being shot in the shoulder by a member of the Capitol Police after breaking a window. That's it. That's the full extent of the deaths relating to the January 6th protest at the U.S. Capitol. And that, I submit, is far from a terrorist attack. And lastly, to my mind, the most evil and greatest terror organization in the United States, Planned Parenthood, the pro-child murder organization that was founded by Margaret Sanger. That terrorist organization responsible for providing misinformation and employing coercion and fear among countless millions of young women since 1916. Many victims of their organization in their teens. The organization was actually founded for the sole purpose of murdering unborn babies Miss Sanger deemed as inferior. It's simply a fact she formed Planned Parenthood based on, her quoting, inferior races like Orientals, Jews, and blacks, going so far as to state they were human weeds. Again, do some research. Miss Sanger did not claim her organization was formed to protect a woman's right to choose, but instead an organization formed to eliminate those races she referred to as very, very specifically as inferior. So I ask you, is it MAGA we should fear? Or like me, do you believe that our government is who we should fear? I can assure you that the government fears us. The government fears you. Fears that America's woke will actually awaken and save this country before it truly is too late. Yet the Bible teaches us that as bad as things are right now, unfortunately, it is going to get worse. And knowing that, are you a Christian? If you died tonight, would you go to heaven? Are you that last individual that we're looking for to accept Christ as Savior before the rapture? Now, before I close, I do want to encourage you to join me tomorrow evening and every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday evening at 7:30 for the Last Christian Radio Show. I'm joined there by Brother T.L. Farley on Revelation Radio, www.revelation.net, to discuss biblical prophecy in light of today's events, clearly demonstrating that we are truly the final generation spoken of in the Bible. The rapture is imminent. There's only one. Make sure you're with us and not left behind. May God bless you, and until next Wednesday evening, good night, and God bless you each and every one.
Thank you for joining us today for the Last Christian Podcast, and please be sure to tune in every Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Central Time for an all-new edition of this prophetic series as we continue the search for the last Christian. And remember, the Last Christian Radio Show with hosts J.D. Williams and T.L. Farley is now available on Evangelism Radio and Revelation Radio, both broadcasting to all 50 states and more than 160 countries around the world. For more information or broadcast times in your area, please visit www.lastchristian.net or www.revelationradio.net. Until next week, or until the trumpet sounds, may God bless you.